There's always a lot of focus surrounding free agency and the NFL draft with what players we could wind up bringing in to help our roster for the following season, but I want to talk about some of our own impending free agents and guys that we may want to be retaining. Here are 7 rumors surrounding the Jets free agents. Jets! All right, guys, welcome in. My name is Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, we have talked a lot about free agency, a lot about the NFL draft, and a lot about trade circumstances and everything along those lines, but we haven't really touched on our own free agents and guys that we may want to retain. As Jet fans, we're always looking forward to those outside talents coming in, but we have some guys that are internal to us that really do make this whole thing tick, and it would be really nice to try and retain some of our own after really not handing out a whole lot of second contracts to a lot of players over the last few years. So let's jump into it. A lot of these come from Rich Cimini. So here are some of the players that we are talking about and some of the rumors that are coming out. There is a good chance wide receiver Braxton Berrios and defensive tackle Folorunso Fatukasi get to the open market. Both would attract the most interest. Berrios is seeking around $9 million a year, while Fatukasi is looking for about $8 million a year. So we've heard the Braxton Berrios rumors. I know that seems to be like the guy a lot of us want to bring back, our top free agent, top impending free agent that you want to help surround Zach with talent. And we have other guys that are hitting free agency like Jamison Crowder, like Keelan Cole. So wide receiver is going to be a big need. $9 million for Braxton Berrios. Now that is a tall task because I think a lot of us were hoping somewhere in the $5 to $6 million range. So to see $9 million with top slot money is probably a little jarring for a lot of people. If the Jets look to put Elijah Moore and keep him on the outside and they are just looking for their new slot, I think you can make an argument that Berrios could wind up being a really good long-term slot for us. So if you want to pay him $9 million and say that the money that you were paying Jamison Crowder last year, which was like $5 million, the Keelan Cole contract, that was $5.5 million, that money goes directly to Braxton Berrios. He's been reliable. He's a young, upstart kind of player. I think there's going to be an argument for that as well. But allowing these guys to hit the open market is something that kind of scares me. And you got to be careful because you don't want to overpay too drastically, but you also don't want Braxton Berrios going back to the Patriots, who we stole Berrios off their practice squad. So they clearly like the guy. It wouldn't shock me if they were to extend an offer to him up in New England. So I don't want to see him go anywhere. He's someone I definitely want to retain. $9 million is definitely just a lot of money to offer up. On the Folorunso Fatukasi standpoint, it's weird because I want to see, we just paid John Franklin Myers, right? And I want to see him get kicked back inside. So ideally, in my mind, I'm thinking John Franklin Myers and Quinnen Williams are the two guys I would like to see in our starting rotation. So for me, I feel like Foley might wind up being an odd man out, which is weird because he's one of our defensive captains. He's a glue guy for the locker room. So I think if we can try to retain him, I think we absolutely should try to. Now, one thing that I think is going to come into play is, will Foley come down on his asking price, and what is Joe Douglas looking to pay? Because if he's looking for around $8 million a year, right now Sheldon Rankins is under contract for, I think it's like $6.1 million, and we can cut him and save $5.5 million. So if Foley's willing to be around, maybe he comes down $1 million to $7 million and we go up $1 million from $6 to $7. Maybe that's the happy medium and you retain one of your captains on your roster, because as much as you want to keep bringing in new talent, you got to have veterans in place and guys that have been around the team, guys that are team players. And Foley is one of those guys that I think is an important piece to keep around, even though it's not necessarily a position of need in my mind. But moving on from Sheldon Rankins and keeping Foley, that seems like the move to make. Rankins only came in last year. I would say middling results. I think you go with the guy in Foley who's a proven run stuffer, even though, obviously our run defense was not that great. But I think I don't think you blame Foley for the fault of the entire run defense when he was actually playing really, really well. So I think bringing him back would be awesome. The next rumor, free safety Marcus May's rehab is going well, but his relationship with the team has run its course. This makes a lot of sense. I really think he's hitting free agency. We're not going to try and sign him back. I don't even think an offer winds up getting extended. We hit him with the franchise tag last year and then offered him 20% less than the franchise tag on a multi-year deal. He wound up getting a Dewey back in the springtime, didn't tell the team about it. There was this whole rift and people, probably some feelings hurt, I would think. I feel bad for the guy because I really like Marcus May, and a blown Achilles is really not great. So between everything that's gone on with the relationship side of things, the money side of things, plus the injury, I think we're probably moving on from him. Now, how do I want to address safety, and how do I think Douglas is going to address safety? Because this is a really interesting area of concern because you have, Kyle Hamilton sitting at the top of the draft, this unicorn caliber prospect. Do you want to try and solve your issue at safety with an elite caliber talent, but you're also taking a non-premium position inside the top 5? That's kind of alarming. Or do you go the free agency route and you go after someone like a Jeremy Bates, a Marcus Williams? Those are probably two of the biggest name free agent safeties that are going to be hitting the market. When I look at Joe Douglas, I see him offer less money to Marcus May. I see him trade away Jamal Adams before giving him a big contract. I see him bring in LaMarcus Joyner for the vet minimum, and then he spends a third-round pick on Ashton Davis. So he really hasn't prioritized safety all that high. So I don't know where he winds up going with this. I think in my mind, I would love to bring in Justin Reid, the safety from Houston. He seems like the money's probably going to be on par with where we would prefer to pay a safety. The upside is there. It just didn't seem to work out with Houston this year. So could we bring back maybe LaMarcus Joyner on a 1-year contract, vet minimum, bring in a free agent like Justin Reid, and then maybe draft a guy in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th round to help compete? That's probably the route I would like to go. I mean, if I could get Marcus Williams, I'm all about it. I just don't know if he's going to wind up shaking free. Next one up, wide receiver Jamison Crowder is also expected to move on from the team. This is sad because Crowder's really been our top receiver for like the last 3 years, and he's been so reliable, but he's just getting slightly up there in age. I would prefer to pay Berrios over paying Crowder, even though Crowder's just been, like I said, a rock, reliable this entire time. He's been our leading, I think he's led our team in receptions each of the 3 years that he's been here. So he's been a great security blanket. Hopefully he winds up finding somewhere else he can land, maybe somewhere on a winning team, because he's put in all the work that you could ask for the guy, and I'm happy with what we got out of his contract. I think knocking him down from that $9 million contract to $5 million probably was a little tip of the hand as to where we felt on Crowder anyway, but hopefully he moves on to a good team. Right guard, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif's medical licensing issue has been resolved and will play the 2022 season. He is set to be a free agent. So, LDT, we traded for him from the Kansas City Chiefs. We swapped Dan Brown, our 4th-string tight end, special teams ace, for him. And he wound up plugging into our right guard spot and playing really, really well in place of Greg Van Roten. And I would love to bring LDT back. He was probably one of my higher priority free agents for this cycle. And a lot of it had to do with his medical license. Because he's a Canadian doctor, he has to hit his residency in a certain amount of time. Otherwise, I think he forfeits his medical license. But because there is an extenuating circumstance, he's not giving up on medicine because he's, tired with medicine and he's just not doing it within a certain time period. He's actually playing in the NFL and he still wants to practice medicine. So they granted him that, extension. So I would love to bring him back. If you can get LDT back on a 1-year deal, that gives you a little bit of protection in case you want to go with Ekwonu or go with Neal early in this draft, or maybe you go with the edge rusher and you're not sure who you're going to get with the guard situation if one of Hutch or Thibodeau's there in the draft. So I would love to bring back LDT. I don't know what the contract would have to be for him, but I think he makes perfect sense in this team. And look, we took a stab on you after like 2 years off from football, so come back, dude. This would be really cool. Next one up. The Jets are interested in keeping tackle Morgan Moses, but they already have Mekhi Becton and George Fant. Moses probably has a better opportunity elsewhere. That's kind of how I think a lot of us feel. Ideally, we need a third tackle because you can't guarantee that Becton's going to stay healthy, and injuries just happen across the NFL all the time. Like, would it shock anyone to see George Fant go down with some kind of injury because someone rolled up on his leg? No. Obviously, tackle's a big area of concern, and you don't want your quarterback getting, bashed down the entire game. So if you could bring back Morgan Moses, that would be fantastic. He wound up getting cut late in the season or late in the offseason last year, so that he didn't have a whole lot of teams to choose from, to pick from in free agency. So I think him hitting free agency now, I think he'll be able to command a little bit more money, and I would be surprised if we're going to be able to retain him. He's been rock solid. He's been healthy. Availability is the best ability, and I don't think he's missed a game, I think since 2015, I'm pretty sure was the stat. So absolutely huge. I would love to bring him back. Like I said, and like Samini says, I think he's probably going to get more money from another team elsewhere, but we shall see. And then the final rumor coming out, quarterback Joe Flacco might return to the Jets as a backup mentor, but many teams will be in the market for a quarterback too. So Joe Flacco, if he thinks he can possibly provide some value to a winning team, maybe he decides to go that route. Maybe he decides to show some loyalty to the Jets, who's brought him in the last 2 years. Joe Douglas was the one who scouted him in Baltimore. Maybe he winds up hanging around. And it's weird because I ideally would like to retain Mike White as our backup quarterback and kind of let Joe Flacco go, or just have him as a veteran presence. But Robert Saleh seems to really like the veteran presence in the locker room. I think that probably helps Zach Wilson develop. And ideally, if you're looking at all our backup quarterbacks, like I had an issue with not going backup quarterback last year because of the mentor thing. And because if Zach goes down, we don't have anyone else. But this year, if it's shown us anything, Josh Johnson, Joe Flacco, Mike White, heck, even the guys from the Senior Bowl are playing well in this offense. So it seems like backup quarterback, at least from a plug-in skill type of position and knowing the playbook, it seems like our guys can grasp this really well. So I would say backup quarterback, not as big of an issue for me as much as the mentor leadership role that Zach could just kind of learn from a vet, a guy that's been in the league, guy that's won a Super Bowl, knows how to do it, done everything the right way. So that's probably where I land on that. Again, would like to see Mike White back. So if I'm rounding it all back, hopefully Berrios doesn't go for quite so much money. Don't want to see him go to a division rival. Foley Fatukasi, I would cut Rankins to bring him back. Marcus May, he's probably done. Jameson Crowder, he's probably done. LDT would love to have him back at right guard. Morgan Moses would love to have him back. I think he's going to get more money elsewhere. And Joe Flacco is kind of like, meh, I'm good either way. Basically, if Wilson goes down, we're kind of screwed either way. So we'll see. Guys, let me know your thoughts on everything that I went over of these rumors down below. Are there players that you want to see us retain? Are there ones that I didn't bring up that you do want to see us retain? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, go Jets.